Well, guys, we've talked to the dealership, we've talked to Ford Canada, and basically this is what they've told me. Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. If you watched the last video, we did get the car back. It was fixed by a friend of mine after Ford had claimed that they were not able to fix it, and I told you guys I was going back to the dealership to talk to them about that. Now, before I get into this video, I just want to say I didn't go in there blaming them or claiming they did whatever they did. Because of the stuff that we found inside the engine, I cannot prove that that came from the dealership. So that is aside from everything that's going to be in this video. What I can tell you guys and what I can prove is that the only other place this car's ever been worked on is in my own garage. And you guys can see all those videos because everything I've done to the car, I filmed for YouTube and posted it. So other than that, nobody has touched the car. That's all I'm going to say about that. Can't prove it. You guys take it how you want to, but that's basically is what it is. So now to the dealership. I brought it in and everybody wanted to know what dealership this was. We are dealing with Mainland Ford. Mainland Ford in Surrey, British Columbia are the ones that took the car originally, and everything just went downhill from there. So on the last video, I told you the car was fixed. Basically, we took the oil pan off, did all the same work that Ford claimed they did, and that is why I'm making this video. The stuff I can prove is the stuff that Ford themselves put on the worksheet. The work they claimed they did to the vehicle. They said, took the oil pan off. Basically, what that involves is dropping the subframe because you can't get the bolts and stuff out. Dropped the subframe, took it out, found debris, as they called it, in the oil pan and in the motor, apparently. So, they told me, unfixable, order a new engine, $15,000. That's what they've been adamant on since day one. Ended up going back and forth. This car sat for over 6 months, or it was almost 6 months to the day, actually, it sat from the first day I brought it in to when my friend's shop finally got a hold of it and fixed it. So basically they've said they took the oil pan off. They ran it through a car wash for car parts. I forget what it's called exactly, but basically it's a high pressure washer for car parts. You put it in there, does its thing, cleans it all, put it back on, should be good to go. But the problem with that is the oil pan has the pickup tube. The pickup tube was plugged. It's a tube. It's about this close to the bottom of the oil pan. You can't see in there. You can't feel in there. You can't clean in there. So if you were to bring this thing to a car wash, it would be like if you need to clean the interior of your car and you pressure wash the outside and then you wonder why the inside of your car is not clean. Same mentality. Anybody with a brain should be able to figure that out. But not Mainland Ford. I brought it back. I drove the car there. Went in, talked to the service manager, who is by far the most useless person I've ever met in my life. How she is managing this place, I don't know. First, I sat around for 20 minutes, half an hour, because they were apparently in a meeting. It's not the first time we've been told they were in a meeting, but is what it is. So I decided, I'll wait. Went in, they basically told me, well, we cleaned it as best as we could. We looked, everything was all right. So I just asked the lady, are you willing to sign where it says you cleaned the oil pan and all was good, and put your name on that saying, yes, it was cleaned and all is good? She wouldn't. Big surprise. Then I showed her the picture of the pickup tube that you guys seen in the other videos where the paper towel or whatever in there is plugged. And she said, oh, it must have got plugged when you fired up the car. The car hadn't been fired up. I took it from Ford to my friend's shop, and that's that. So they're basically saying that I'm a liar, even though the car was outside running and the pickup tube was there. So when I showed her that picture, I said, well, can you tell me for sure that you guys seen this part? And yes, it was clean. And she kind of hummed and hawed, wouldn't say yes, but didn't say no. And reason being is because we broke that piece off. So if she said, of course I saw that it was clean. No, you didn't, because you can't see that unless you break it. And if you were to break it, you wouldn't have put the same oil pan back on the car. End of story. That's that. So I showed her, car's outside running. Like I said, I didn't blame them for anything else. I just wanted to say, how come your trained mechanics did not see this, but my guys did it for $1,000 less, including the new part, and the car works fine. And she basically told me, car doesn't work fine, it's gonna blow up again. I said, excuse me, I've been driving the car. Keep in mind, this is 2 weeks. We'll get to that part in a little bit. This is 2 weeks after the video that I just posted last week. I held out because of certain information. Hold on, we'll get to that part. This is 2 weeks later now. So she's telling me when they cleaned it out, put it all back together, the car plugged itself within a minute, under a minute. But when we took it apart, put the new oil pan on, now that it's all clean and new, everything works. But now she's telling me, oh, well, it's gonna plug up, what, 2-3 weeks later? And it still hasn't plugged up. Yet when you guys do it, it plugs up in, you know, minutes. I'm going on weeks. You guys went on minutes. Like, how is that possible? So long story short, she basically told me to kick rocks. So I didn't want to cause a big scene in there. That's not the type of person I am. I'll post it on here so thousands of people can see, instead of just a couple people in the store that might have seen me making a stink. So after being told to kick rocks from the Ford manager lady there, I went home and I called Ford Canada. Now, everybody told me originally call Ford Canada, get it dealt with through them. So I did, phoned them. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what the guy that I talked to through Ford Canada told me, is that Ford Canada is not technically involved with the dealerships. They are Ford Canada as the company, but the dealerships, I'm not sure if it's all or if this is just one of them, is kind of like a side seller of Ford. So they can't call mainland Ford and say, hey, you guys messed up, give this guy his money back, because mainland Ford is their own thing. They buy the cars outright from Ford Canada or Ford. Then they get their cars shipped, and then they're free to do whatever they want, which does kind of make sense because mainland Ford is also one of the few dealerships, it's not too bad around here anymore, but one of the few dealerships that marks up like crazy. So they're ordering their own vehicles, send it in, they can basically put whatever price they want on these things. And like I said, they're one of the dealerships that is still doing that. I know my friend has the Bronco. If you watch this channel, you've seen that thing. We didn't get it from mainland Ford, but theirs were like marked up by $10,000 to $15,000 on these basically base Broncos. So they are one of those dealerships. But yes, Ford basically told me that the only thing they can do, now this is why it's taken a couple weeks for this video to come out, is he said what they can do is they will email the general manager of mainland Ford. And I sent him the pictures. I sent the guy from Ford Canada the pictures and stuff of what I found and what my buddies found at the shop when we took it apart. And basically they email the general manager of mainland those pictures and what I told them, and just kind of not like force them to do anything, but at least when Ford Canada is seeing that, hey, there's issues with this dealership, it could affect the vehicles they get in the future, the amount of vehicles they get, and of course just bad reviews on any Ford, whether it's linked directly or not, does affect them at the end of the day. So I did leave a Google review. He told me himself, go leave a Google review, because nowadays everything's online, and the reviews, even if it might be one bad one and 50 good ones, that one bad one does more damage than the 50 good ones would. So I've done that. I've left the review. Like I said, I've been waiting for mainland Ford for 2 weeks. They told me the general manager would email or call me back. I have not heard anything. Ford Canada said once they email, wait to 2 to 3 weeks for a response. Basically, you get like a claim number. It's not a claim number, I forget what they call it, but you get a number, a case number. That was it. You get a case number, And if I want to follow up with Ford Canada eventually, I can go back to them, give them the case number, and they'll say yay or nay. But as for actually getting the money back, that's nothing to do with them. I have to actually deal with Mainline Ford for that. I'm not holding my breath. Luckily, it was like $2,200 or something. I can't remember exactly, but luckily I'm in a position where a couple $1,000s is not going to make or break me. It is what it is. But the way I look at it is, what if they're doing this to more people than just me? If you got some little old lady going in there, or your mom or your dad or anybody goes in having engine problems, it could be something as simple as this, and they're going to charge these people who don't know what they're doing and they go into a dealership trusting that they're going to be dealt with professionally and honestly, and these guys do this type of stuff. Like, if you're not, you know, swimming in dough, or a lot of people nowadays are working payday to payday, check to check. If you go in and Ford tells you, yeah, sorry, your car is toast, it needs, you know, $10,000 worth of work, and these people may believe it, they're going to fork over thousands of dollars to this company. And if they would have just known and followed up with another mechanic or another dealership or anything, they could save themselves thousands of dollars. Like, if this is something that this company and Mainline Ford is doing often, they could be making thousands of extra dollars off of stuff that shouldn't even have had to been done in the first place. And then, just the icing on the cake, the final part of the story, is now this could just be coincidence. It just seemed awfully fishy to me. But I mentioned in the last video, when we were looking for an oil pan for the car, Ford Canada didn't have one. Like, for the parts section, did not have one. And I'm talking Canada wide. Like, all the Ford locations where they store parts, they did not have the oil pan for this car. So the Ford that we ordered the parts through started to look around at dealerships. And what dealership do you think in Canada, we're still talking Canada, the only dealership that had an oil pan for 2019 Mustang GT was Mainland? So I'm, like I said, maybe this is my brain working overtime. I've had enough of this whole situation. Were they going to charge me for a new motor and just change the oil pan themselves? And that's why they gave it back and said, yeah, we cleaned it and it doesn't work? Because what are the chances that Canada-wide there was no oil pan except for the one sitting in Mainland's office? Could just be my brain going overtime, but just seemed a little too fishy, a little too coincidental that out of everywhere in Canada, because like everybody said in these videos, nobody has seen this. I've never seen it. Nobody's ever seen this happen. So it's not like, you know, Mustangs all over the place are looking for new oil pans. It's not very often these things need to get changed. And it just happens to be the place where my car's sat for 4 or 5 months has the oil pan, and all that it was taken to fix the car was said oil pan. So we will see. Like I said, I'm not holding my breath to hear anything back from anybody, but the Google reviews are in. I'll post some stuff on Instagram. Obviously this video is out there. If you're around my area, avoid Mainline Ford at all costs. And if you're not in the area, at least you know what's going on with the car. Plans are, we are selling the car. The car is actually sold already. I'll go over that in the next video. But for now, like I said, avoid Mainline Ford. Thumbs up, subscribe, and hopefully we catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody.